If you've thought about starting a student led broadcast program but felt overwhelmed, this episode is for you. This is the Broadcast Ops Playbook, a podcast for teachers who want to build student led broadcast and media programs without the chaos. I'm your host, Taylor Siebert, and I'm joined by Nathan Ladahoff. We'll call him Hoosier, who brings the analyst lens and real world insights into what's actually happening in schools. In this first episode, we want to start with the most important question of all that we get a lot. Why are student-led broadcast programs even worth starting in the first place? And we want to talk about this honestly because we know for a lot of teachers, it feels like more work before it feels worth it. So before we even get into the why, I just want to say this. Most teachers we talk to are already stretched thin. Time is really tight. There's pressure to do more every day, and starting something new feels really heavy, especially something public like a broadcast program. There's fear of adding more work on top of what you're already doing, coaching, other responsibilities in the school, uncertainty about where to even begin, and anxiety around equipment and quality, which can be quite overwhelming. So if this sounds familiar, you're not behind, you are normal. Hoosier, you talk to teachers all the time, and when they hesitate to start a program like this, what are they really saying?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is they don't know where to start. Um, and that's time and time again, it's become this thing of, either we have gear and we don't know how to use it, or we don't have the gear and we started looking online, and any forum you go to or any different website will tell you 1,000 different ways to, or 1,000 different pieces of equipment to get. And so that's what we see. And I'll be honest, that's normal because every single school setup that we work with is completely different. So again, you're not in the minority, you're with the majority of people that you could do anything, any gear and make it work.
So if that is the reality, then the problem isn't really effort. And I think that's where I think the framing gets off for a lot of schools because student led broadcast programs aren't about perfection. They're not about having the best gear, which does help. And we'll talk about gear later. And we aren't trying to replicate an ESPN type of production in a high school gym. Let's be honest. They're about structure before scale. And really, this will be the theme throughout this entire playbook podcast. It's about learning for the students. It's a learning experience, hands-on learning experience. And what we found is programs don't struggle because of lack of talent. There's students who are really talented in every school. Giving them that opportunity is an incredible experience. But they struggle without systems. In every class, in every program that is built in a school, there's a system, there's a playbook, except for broadcasting and media programs. And that's why we're starting this podcast. So the anchor thought that we come back to over and over is the program comes first and equipment supports that program. And then you plug in your students and we'll talk about roles and things like that here in a little bit. But Hoosier, when schools miss that, they put the equipment before maybe the program structure. What typically happens from your experience?
Well, the first thing is that a lot of the gear goes unused. There's lots of schools that I talk to that I do a deep dive of like, what do you have? And they're like, oh, we have all this cool stuff. I'm like, how much of it do you use? And they're like, not even 50% of it. I'm like, okay, that's great to know. Because I think a lot of schools and people with great intentions think that new gear, good gear, is going to increase the engagement with the students. And the problem is it won't, right? It will help for a little bit. Let's be honest. I like new gear. Taylor, I'm sure you like new things, right?
Very much
But
so.
but when you're trying to get students to buy in on a broadcast system, something that is, you could call it a quote unquote grind, like it takes a while, seasons long. It's like being on a team, right? So you might get new jerseys at the beginning of the year for your basketball team, but that's not why people are playing basketball, right? It's the same way with gear for your broadcast. You might get new cameras, but that's not the reason you want. it's not the reason you want your students to have when they join the broadcast program. Because all of a sudden, when funds get tighter and you can't get new stuff, if they just bail on you, then you don't have a program. You just have a group of people who really like nice new gear.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities with building a program like this. And I think once teachers understand that they're not trying to be perfect, something else opens up. And when structure comes first, the opportunity shows up pretty quick when you see students start to take ownership. That we've seen it time and time again at every program that we help build, and confidence grows through the responsibility that you give students. And this is the opportunities and real deadlines. There's nothing like hitting that live, going live button, creates a sense of urgency. And pride really comes when you're building something that actually matters. Because as Brandon Mowinkle at Milford High School told us years ago, our broadcast program is the most public thing our school does. So we are going to take pride in this and what our students are doing. We're going to make it a learning opportunity, but we want it to be high quality, but that doesn't happen right away. But we know that when the work matters, students show up differently. So when we're talking about student ownership, Hooj, what are some examples you've seen of students taking ownership, maybe for yourself? Share a little bit of your story.
Yeah, well, we'll hit up my story first just so I can get out of the way because I don't feel awkward sharing it, but I definitely, I've been blessed with great opportunities and it's definitely a tool that has helped other students and other teachers. And when I was a sophomore in high school, I had the opportunity to broadcast a game. And it was because a student got sick, right? So where I'm sitting right now is because a student got sick one night. And that's the door that opened. And from there on, the teacher kind of let me have ownership of the broadcast program because I loved it and I wanted to make it better. And so it started with, lunch meetings at the table with the crew. Like the people that were on the broadcast team were the people that I ate lunch with at school every day. We were not best friends, but we were friends, right? There and we were always on the same page. It was, hey, yep, we've got these games this week. So it was like a Monday lunch meeting of like, I would print out a Word doc and be like, here we go. This is what we have. And they absolutely loved it because it helped remind them. And I loved it because it helped remind me. And then as a team, again, we were all on the same page. As far as students go, I have a list of probably 50 or more what I'd call success stories of students. The biggest one is we have a student who, right out of high school, went to the University of Nebraska Lincoln, got involved with their Husker Vision stuff for the athletic department, but also had connections to start broadcasting college football games on Fox Sports. And he's one of their camera operators. And so this fall, he traveled, all over the Midwest covering games as a camera operator for college football. And he's only a sophomore in college, right? And so, but he had lots of doors open for him at the right time. But just because you have doors open doesn't mean you're going to, become something good out of it. He had to take advantage of those opportunities when those doors opened and work really hard. And he is where he is because of that.
Yeah, let's talk about student led, because you shared some examples of you leading as a student. The teacher did kind of grant you permission, if you will, or saying, "Hey, you're now going to be stepping into this role." And I think when a lot of people hear, especially teachers, this podcast is for you. They hear student led, they immediately picture chaos, because that's not the norm in other classes, right? In a math science class, you're not going to go, all right, Nathan, you're now going to teach the class today. The teacher is the expert. And I think a lot of fear is built in a teacher when they think or hear student led. So let's break that down a little bit. It doesn't mean chaotic. It doesn't mean you're handing off the broadcast program to them. It doesn't mean the quality is going to be lower. What it actually means is you're giving clear roles to students, which is different than other classes. You're assigning, you're going to be leading our weekly meeting at lunch. I mean, you just kind of took that on, right? There's going to be shared responsibility. You're building a team. There's going to be other responsibilities that students have to fill. announcing, camera work, producing, directing. And so teachers have to shift from the rescuer or the expert sometimes to you're really guiding these students in these areas. So what do people usually or teachers get wrong when they hear student led from your experience, Hoosier?
Well, yeah, I think the first thing is they hear student led and they're like, so I'm not going to be a part of this at all. And it's like, no, that's not what we're saying. I think the biggest thing that I use to describe student led is that you're letting the students do the work, very much like a choir instructor during a concert or like a coach during a basketball game or a football game. Like the students have to be the ones doing the majority of the work, but they can't get there without the training, without the guidance of you as the teacher. And so when we're talking student led, your role as a teacher might be more during class time. And then once you've trained your team, prepared your team, then it's let them go and do what they do. Let them go do what you train them to do during a broadcast. And that can mean, you know, if you're lucky enough not having to be at the broadcast in the evening, but most people, let's be honest, aren't that fortunate. But you're not having to take on a role in your broadcast. You're just, hey, is everything set up? You're there as the person to make sure everything goes smoothly. But again, you're not running a camera. You're not announcing. Now, you can if you really love to, or a student gets sick. Um, but again, a lot of times you're just overseeing the broadcast and honestly, hopefully finding joy in the fact that your students are putting out an amazing product.
Yeah, the broadcast is the classroom, right? It's an extension of the classroom. And you remind me of, we've had several teachers who are coaches who've had to be coaching a game while the students that they lead are doing the broadcast. And that takes a lot of trust. That doesn't happen on day one. And there's a lot of fear that goes into that. But I want to transition to where gear fits in. You've probably been thinking and screaming in your head, like, okay, this sounds great, but where does all the equipment fit in? And it does matter. But we encourage you to start simple because it matters more. Every school we've talked to has told us to start small. So the biggest mistake we've seen is schools buying equipment before defining roles or events. What are you going to even be streaming? Are you doing a daily news show or are you doing live sports? Those are important questions to ask. And so we found that overbuying can create stress and then under planning really creates chaos in your program. Hoosier, you recently worked with a school that purchased new gear through us, through Striv AV, over a year ago, and they just got the equipment. So a lot of planning went into place for them. Take us through that process.
Yeah, well, so this is a school that already had a broadcast program in place. They already had equipment, and the call was, "Hey, we have been one camera for a long time, but we finally have enough students bought in, and we want to start doing multiple cameras." And I said, "Okay." The jump from one camera to two cameras requires a little bit more um, equipment on the front end, but then once you go from two to three to four, little less of an upfront cost for that. And so the idea was, what do you need that will accommodate your space, that will accommodate your students? One of the biggest things for them was they needed to be ultra mobile because they were doing stuff outside a lot as well as inside the gym, and their space was pretty small. Right. So when you start thinking about like, hey, I need multiple cameras, I need a screen, we can't go with a 55-inch, flat screen TV. It doesn't fit in the space, it doesn't transport. But if there's a little, camera switcher that has a 10-inch built-in screen, let's absolutely get that. It's already attached to it. It folds up. It looks kind of like a laptop, but it does camera switching. And I showed that product to the teacher, and he's like, "Yes, that's what we need."
For
And
under a
so,
$1,000.
but yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite the product. And as I opened it up with him, and it was kind of like Christmas for him to finally get all the gear, and he's like, this is really cool. And I sat there being like, yeah, this is really cool. I don't know why we don't have one and use something like that more often for our mobile streams. But yeah, it's that idea of what works for you. And I think a lot of times too, when you start buying equipment and you try to buy a bunch at the beginning, some people think it's going to increase what their stream quality looks like. Let me tell you this. I can make a one camera stream, and the camera could be from, 2018. And if you know the right settings and where to adjust and how to get it to look pretty good, that's going to beat the quality of having, 4K cameras, but not knowing how to run them, not knowing how to adjust them. And so there's a big knowledge gap too that we'll be honest, you haven't figured out yet in the beginning how to do multiple cameras. There is a lot that goes into it. And, Taylor, you and I have been fortunate over the last, 5-6 years as we've expanded our own streaming stuff that we do with students to really gain that knowledge of what it takes to do multiple cameras and all the little steps that it almost for us has become second nature. And so when I'm talking to teachers, I have to remind them, like, we might make it look easy, but we've been doing it a lot. And so there was a path that we had to take. There were doors that we had to walk through in order to get to this point. And it's just part of the process. There's not a great way to shortcut it. Or I should say this, you don't want to shortcut it because you'll miss out on a lot of learning opportunities, not just for you as a teacher, but for your students as well.
And I will say the shortcut for you is to work with us, to work with Hoosier and I. We've vetted a lot of this equipment and we know how it works with the training and all of that. But the simple rule here is this: plan first, buy second. End of story. You've got to have a plan in place before you start buying equipment. And so a lot of people will just jump on B&H and Amazon and just start piecing things together, and they don't really know how it's all going to fit together till they get it. And so if you want to work with us, leave a comment, send us a message, join our community, Future Ready Educators, and we can help you. There's a ton of educators out there like you who have the same questions you do, which is why we are starting this podcast and this show, The Playbook. Let's talk about year one. We're launching this Playbook podcast here around broadcast operations to start 2026. A lot of teachers may be thinking about starting a program here this next fall. And so this is an important time for them to start planning and thinking about year one, or maybe they're going to talk to their administration about starting a broadcast program. I just talked to a school a couple weeks ago that really want to start something, and they're like, what do I share with my administrators? And so if you're starting, the first year can feel pretty heavy. And so, but it should feel manageable. You should be focusing on what the expectations are, what's the deliverables we're trying to achieve in this class. Simple roles, trying to get just one event or one broadcast out that's done really well, and a process that you can repeat each week or each game. You're not starting over every single time. It needs to be repeatable. It doesn't need to be impressive in the first year. So, Hoosier, what would you say? What does a successful year one actually look like for a school and program?
Yeah. A successful year one, the main vision is that when you end the year, you have not fallen out of love with broadcasting. That's point number one. We need you as a teacher to still have the fire and still have the passion for this, because without you, the whole thing will crumble. Like, let's be honest, that's the position you're in. And so if you really want to give these experiences to students, come in with the understanding that you need to make it through the broadcast year, and it's a long one. The first year when we talk to teachers, they're like, man, that was a lot. Now, some of these teachers haven't put in the appropriate boundaries, like Taylor was talking about, and so they lead themselves to get burned out. So honestly, like set boundaries with your admin. Say, what exactly is the expectation to stream? Say, by the way, this is going to require a lot of extra time from me. Coaches get paid a little extra. I'm not saying every school will, but have that conversation with your admin to see if that's an option. Because that's a complaint we hear too often is teachers like, man, I love this, but I'm not getting paid any extra for my extra time. And turns out that to live in this world, you need money. And so it's always nice to get a little extra of it. But really what I loved seeing programs in year one do is have all of their students buy into the idea that what we are doing is to help promote things at the school while also being a learning opportunity. I'm a big, believer in, the students and everyone that works at a school are all promotional tools for the school, right? My parents always told me, they're both teachers at the school that I graduated from. They said, you are, every time you go on a field trip, you step out of the school, you go on, you're playing a game on the court, you are a representation of the school. And like we quoted Dr. Mowinkle, it's, you are the, this is the most public thing that your school will do. And so you're the largest marketing tool the school has. And so by the end of year one, I hope you have still got the passion to broadcast. You've got students to buy in that really love it, that aren't all seniors. That's a key one. Don't have a bunch of seniors. They can still help, but they're gone after the end of the year. So they're not super helpful for year two in program building. And then have those expectations and make it a product that people want to stop you, in the grocery store, or other teachers are walking by saying, "Hey, what you guys did the other night, or what you guys did for this season was really cool on the broadcast."
And there's some common mistakes that we've seen. No shame in this. Even with the best intentions, you've got your mission and vision and goals, which we help schools do a lot of planning around their program before they start even doing anything. And there's some things that start to drift once you get into that rhythm of doing these events. And we've already talked about this. Gear is bought too early. You get really excited and you're like, let's add a drone to our broadcast. Well, we don't even know if that can even work. Or you have one student who just absolutely falls in love with this and they end up doing everything. And they happen to maybe be a senior. Or teachers become the bottleneck because they can't, trust the students to be able to do some of this. So then you don't end up doing as much as maybe you could. And every event may feel like you're starting over every time. And so this isn't necessarily a people problem, it's a systems problem. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah. There's even stuff in my personal life that I've been working on. I'm like, yeah, this is a systems problem. I think almost everything can be in life can be taken back to a systems thing, because that's just how the world operates. You're at point A, you want to get to point B, something has to happen in between there. And I think, the biggest thing that we've seen is either teachers being way too involved, and so they have to be there every night. And if the teacher gets sick, it happens, all of us get sick, then all of a sudden the students have no idea what they're doing. Or the opposite, the students know what they're doing, the teacher doesn't, and all the students, either graduate or they're not able to be there on one night. And now all of a sudden you're, as a teacher, scrambling around being like, oh, I've been so reliant on my students. What do I do? Having a good system in place, having documentation. In the business world, we call them SOPs, standard operating procedures. Having those for your broadcast program is a fantastic idea. And we've really been pushing a lot of our schools to develop more and more of those. We've always kind of had a few basic ones, but we're really like, go deep into every position that you have in your broadcast and list everything out, because you never know what one student finds works really well that they just don't tell anyone else, right? And that knowledge could live and die with them, not die in a horrific sense, but they leave, they get sick, nobody knows, right?
Yeah, it could be a real problem, especially if a teacher leaves after year one. Who's going to pick that back up? And so we're building something that we'll talk about here, but I want you to kind of land this as we wrap up with something practical for teachers that are listening to this here to start 2026, or whenever they're listening to this. Maybe they're listening to a year from now. If they're listening, what's one thing they could do this next week? And if that one thing they could achieve, what would that be?
Set the boundaries. Talk to admin, set the boundaries. become really clear on why you're doing it. Getting admin buy-in has been one of the struggles that a lot of our schools have. The teacher has the idea, and the administration are like, why are we doing this? You know, you got to get them to buy in. You got to get them to see that you're helping market the school at no additional cost besides equipment, but you're not paying someone, unless, of course, you get paid. But you're not like hiring a marketing person to do it. Also, figure out what events you're going to do, right? If you get on the hook, we had a school that said we're going to stream everything, and I asked them, I'm like, everything, really? They're like, yes. I'm like, okay. At the end of the year, they're like, well, we streamed a lot. I said, yeah, I figured when you said you were going to stream everything. But at the end of the year, they were exhausted, and they're like, I don't know if I can do it again. I'm like, well, is there any need? I mean, this might sound harsh, but you're the one that has to figure this out. Do you need to stream the junior high games? Are people even watching? Right? If you're only averaging 10 viewers on a junior high game, you're serving those 10 people, but that's it. But if you're getting, a couple hundred on your varsity games, or up to 1,000, you're a couple thousand, then you're really serving that. So you got to make even like an analytical business decision to say, are these 10 people watching junior high people that probably could have come to the game, and if they miss it, whatever, but you do feel for grandparents that can't see it. But, what's stopping a mom from Facebook live streaming the junior high football game in the stands? I mean, they're probably doing it anyway without you even knowing. And so you providing that service to those 10 people in the grand scheme of 100 to 1,000 becomes not worth it. So setting those boundaries about, this is what we stream, this is how we do it, and making sure that your administration is maybe not fully on board, because it'll take some time. Like I was thinking about this the other day. It isn't just one conversation and admin are like full support. It is, we'll let you try this, and then every broadcast, and this might be important to pass on to your students, every broadcast is proving to your admin that they made the right choice in letting you do it. Every single time you go on the air, your students are saying the appropriate things. They're not, making a fool of themselves in the school. Your camera people are doing great camera work. And if you have, sponsors or advertisers, you're making sure that they get highlighted. If you're doing everything right and it's a good product, your administration has less of a chance to turn you down and say no. And again, you're on a quest in this year one to prove your administration that it's kind of like what was the quote that Tom Brady said when he got drafted at like pick 199? He walked into the owner and he said, yeah, I was one of the last draft picks, but I'm the best pick you'll ever make. And look at what he did now. That's your job as a teacher. Your job is to be the best choice that the school's made lately in starting a student-led broadcast program and highlighting the activities and the athletic events that go on at the school.
And like you said, this captures what this episode's about, is not trying to do everything at once. Starting small, having a plan in place, and executing on that, and not getting distracted by all the different things that can happen. So if this conversation felt familiar, you're not alone. And this show, this Broadcast Ops Playbook podcast, is for you. It exists because teachers need systems, not more pressure and work. And we want to get more schools doing student-led broadcast programs. It's important. It's our purpose. It's our why as a company. And that's exactly why we're building a new product that's coming out this year, and why we started this podcast called Broadcast Ops is the name of the new product. It's going to help schools run student-led broadcast programs without chaos. It's going to be giving teachers one system, one piece of software to plan events, assign roles to those students, prepare students with training and certifications, and most importantly, hold them accountable. The work is doable with the right structure. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you guys next time on the Broadcast Ops Playbook.